When people see me talk to girls, I get the comment a lot that the way that I communicate, the manner in which I express myself, is a little bit unusual, a little bit different. And part of that's just my personality, but part of it is because it makes me more charismatic, more engaging, possibly more persuasive. In any case, it's more socially effective. And one thing that surprises people a lot is how polite I am when I express myself. You see, politeness is an incredibly powerful social tool, and not just for the reason your mother may have told you, not just because it's a nice thing to do, not just because it's politically correct. It's actually very, very effective in a lot of ways, which we're going to discuss right now. The first reason why politeness is useful is probably the one you've heard before, but I want to take it a step further. And that reason is that politeness essentially is a form of a social lubricant, right? There's a reason why kids tell their children that please is the magic word and they should say please and thank you to people. It's because in many cases, not all, but in many cases, people are more willing and will more happily do things for you if you ask politely. That's the very simple, kind of obvious one. But this goes a lot further when you think about the idea that sometimes interactions are not one-offs, right? Sometimes you're interacting with a person over and over again. And so politeness actually acts as an establisher of reputation, right? That social lubricant that you're doing on a daily basis, making the interactions with you pleasant and nice and rewarding and fulfilling for those around you, acts as a form of reputation builder for the times when you're not going to be as polite, for the times when you do really need to stand up for yourself and you really do need to take a firm stance. So take, for example, maybe you're at work and there's one person who's very polite and always seems reasonable. There's another person who's kind of gruff and difficult to deal with. Those two people have a conflict and they have to report it to the boss. Immediately, before they even start stating their cases, before the boss has heard a single word about the conflict, in his mind, he's probably already made a decision who's at fault. He's probably already made a decision who's the one causing trouble, who's the one being difficult to deal with, and that's all based on reputation, right? And so, yes, politeness matters in a one-off, saying your pleases and thank yous, but what it really matters is when you have a longer-term thing and you're building a pattern of behavior and a reputation. This can even exist within one conversation. So say that you're talking to a girl throughout the course of a night and you've dealt with her friends very politely and given them a lot of respect and caring at the start of the night when you first met them. At the end of the night, when it comes time for them to make a decision either in your favor or against you, they're going to be a lot more willing to make that decision in your favor because of that past history, because of that reputation you've established. Also, they're going to have a lot more belief that you're going to treat their friend well in that sort of a case, all right? So yes, it's nice in that moment, but more importantly, being nice in the moment serves to establish a reputation which is going to help you in many, many future moments that are probably more critical circumstances. The next reason why politeness is very useful is that it establishes social competence. You see, when you meet someone, especially if you meet someone over a short period of time, you don't know everything about them. And so what you do is you cue off of certain markers, certain indicators of the overall person. And so, for example, if someone speaks well, uses the right words, you think they are educated. If someone is polite and seems to know how to handle certain social situations, you assume, again, maybe that they're educated, they've been brought up well, you assume that they've had good social feedback throughout their life. So it's actually a form of implied social proof, right? The fact that you have learned enough to be polite. Now, you can go too far with this, right? If you're so polite that you seem like a pushover, that's a problem, right? But base level politeness, not giving in to everybody else's opinions and things like that, but stating the things you state in a polite way does establish a level of social competence. And it is a marker that you came from an education, that you came from a good background, maybe a good family, that sort of thing. To kind of highlight this point, I want to tell you a story that kind of stands out from me from my youth. When I was in high school, I went to a very good school, and there was a kid in one of my class who asked the English teacher why we had to do vocabulary exercises. And the English teacher, without missing a beat, looked him dead in the eye and said, because every time you open your mouth, you identify yourself as a member of the ruling class. Now, putting aside any kind of political correctness issues that we would have with that in 2019 potentially, there is something very valid there, which is that you are being assessed on what you say, and people are, for better or for worse, deciding whether you've been successful, where you came from, whether you'd be an asset to know socially, those kinds of things. And so when you express yourself correctly, when you express yourself knowing the social rules, it looks to people and seems to people like you're a more valuable social ally and that you have more success, perhaps more affluence, perhaps have had better opportunities in your life, and that generally, in many cases, is going to be very, very useful. Also, if you are going to break some social rules, like we do sometimes in game, it makes a lot of sense to show that you know the rules. right? If you show you know the rules and are breaking it, then that breaking looks intentional and purposeful and can work in your favor. If it looks like you're breaking them because you just don't know the rules, now you just look stupid and incompetent. The final reason why politeness is effective and useful is that politeness is generally non-reactive and non-reactivity is generally high value. So if you're in just about any situation and you are not getting too emotionally wrapped up in it, you can keep your kind of impartiality, you can keep your cool. It shows that you have a certain level of abundance, that you have a certain ability to, maintain yourself and your life and your situation, regardless of what happens in the situation. And ironically, when it comes to very heated situations and very negative expressions, they actually can be stronger expressions when made politely. So think about this. If there's kind of an argument and it's getting heated on both sides, and in the heat of the moment, in an angry way, someone says a mean thing to the other person, one, it's taken as heat of the moment, he didn't really mean it. And two, you've at least given them the compliment of being angry, of being emotionally caught up at that same moment, so it's not as harsh as it could be. Whereas the harshest thing you can actually do is not to be angry at someone or to be mean to someone, is to be indifferent to them, is to truly not care. And when you are polite and you're not getting completely emotionally aroused and you're keeping your cool, you actually are showing that level of indifference, which actually is going to make you more effective. And especially when you start talking to really hot and really high social value girls who are used to basically having their asses kissed all the time, when you actually can be indifferent to them, it stands out so strongly and really shows you as a high value guy in a very, very palatable and very hard to fake way. So this indifference, this non-reactivity, actually can be more effective and a stronger form of a negative expression than even being angry or trying to be harsh would be. One quick word of warning. I'm advising you in this video to be polite. I'm not advising you to be the stereotypical nice guy or to be a pushover who just gets walked all over in life and never gets his way. Okay, you still need to stand up for what you want. You still need to have a strong frame. I'm just saying there is a better way to assert that frame in a lot of cases, which is the method of being polite. So in order to illustrate this, I'm going to give you an example from the real world talking to girls. So let's say you're out at a bar, you've said basically hello to a girl, basically just started the conversation, and her friend comes up and sort of obnoxiously is you should buy her a drink. There's a few different wrong ways to handle this and maybe a right way to handle it. So wrong way number one would be to just be yeah, and buy her the drink and then get used for the drink and the friend drags her away and you just spent money on a drink for a girl that's not even going to talk to you and you just got kind of played. That's bad decision number one, or something that probably won't work out in most cases or isn't very smart. Second thing that's really bad, and this is one I see a lot of guys do when they start learning to game, is that they'll be no, I don't buy drinks for girls I don't know. And the girl's friend at that point will be okay, cool, bye, and drag the girl away from you and you won't be able to say another word to her, even if the girl herself liked you, because the girl's friend has more social capital than you, you've been sort of rude to her and you've given her a strong reason to take the friend away, she's just gonna take it, you're not gonna get another word in. So that doesn't work either, and that's kind of the holding your frame impolitely solution. A proper solution, when she says you should buy her a drink, you'd be you know what, maybe, to be fair, I don't know you guys that well yet, maybe we should start with names and just go from there, right? Where you stay unreactive, you stay normal. You can even go a bit further with it and maybe misinterpret it, be you know what, hey, I appreciate the social invite, but perhaps you should just start with names. That might even be better, right? But the idea is you're staying polite, you're staying calm, and you're just handling the situation, on its own merits without this defensive,ness, but also without this fear of loss, right? You're strong and you're strong enough to handle the situation politely and keep your wits, all right? So I want to end this in the spirit of being polite but not being a pushover with a quote from a very famous person, one Mr. Al Capone, who said, you can do more with a kind word and a gun than with just a kind word. So he clearly appreciated the value of politeness, but he also really appreciated the value of a strong negotiating position. So be polite, but also make sure you're negotiating from a position of strength. Make sure you're holding your frame in the right way as well.